So here I am on Q-Matic's interface, and it's being projected into the video by a HDMI cable, and that way you won't get any shadows and glare from the window, etc. I want to show you not so much Q-Matic, but I wanted to show you what's new and different in Q-Matic. And a couple of things just to make sure for housekeeping's sake. If you come up here to the question mark and you click on About, this is where you should be. You should be at 3.00.22, and then the controller box it ends in R110 in essence. Some of you may not realize that there are videos that Bernina puts out, and also that other people that are users put out, such as myself. But if you go under how-to videos, what it will remind you is that this is the link, the Bernina.com/longarm, that you should go. And I do like tips and tricks, so anyone that tells me tips and tricks, I'm in. There is also, just for thoroughness, a contact us, and when I click on this, it looks like that this would be the site that I would go to. I know in the software, the version 9 embroidery software from Bernina, there is a link where you can actually put in a question, which is kind of nice. So the icons over here in the Tool Center are pretty much the same that we knew in the prior version. The difference is this eye in the upper right-hand corner. If I click on this, the icons are replaced with these names. And so, especially if you're new to Q-Matic, I think that this is a nice thing to have. For those of us that have been using it for a bit, that would suffice as well. In the lower left-hand corner, coming down here with me, you're going to see that there are these three new icons here. So this down here we had before, it's called the Micro Move. This is your Easy Glide function. And the Easy Glide, I like this because I'm able to turn Easy Glide off. I don't know about you, but I've got pretty good hearing, and I know that there was a motor humming sound when the prior versions were up and running, and it was again because Easy Glide was always active. But when I click on this, it's deactive when it's white, it's dark when it's active. It turns off the that humming sound. Now, mind you, if I needed to move the head of the machine while it's still connected to the belts, I would certainly want Easy Glide turned on. And up here, when you're looking at Easy Glide, if you come down under Settings and down to Easy Glide Settings, you're going to see that the X motor and the Y motor, you can change these settings. 0 means it's not going to give you any support. 40 means it's going to give you maximum support. I believe it defaulted with a setting of 10, and it certainly was able to move while it's on the belt, but I do ruler work, and I also use my Q-Matic as a channel lock, and so I use it at 20, which allows me to move the head with a single finger. So I have easier control over it, and I don't have to muscle it as much. And once you put in that number, you'll just click on accept, and then you're golden. I have a little tiny little piece of fabric here. It's just the width of a bolt of fabric by roughly, let's just say it was 24 inches or so. And so I defined my quilt region as being 14 inches by 30. So just in case you were kind of wondering why that doesn't look like a quilt, because I don't have a quilt on it, and we don't need to be quilting today. It's just to show you some features. Prior to the video, I went ahead and I did my my safe zone. My safe zone is to the inside of this particular sample, only because I'm clamped on the sides, and I have an external camera that you'll see. I just don't like the head of the machine hitting the clamps that are clamped onto the fabric. So if I was going to make this even more realistic, then instead of putting 14, let me just go ahead and I'm going to tell it that I have a stitching surface of, let's just say it is 12 inches across. And then you can kind of see it looks a little more realistic. And if you zoom in, this is one of the new features with version 3. Picture yourself in front of your computer. It's a big sheet of glass, hence I'm recording it directly off of an HDMI. But just like your smart device, Apple, Samsung, what have you, if you generally take your two fingers onto the screen and pull them apart, you would do a zoom in, and conversely, bringing two fingers together would zoom out. Taking two fingers, swiping up, would scroll up and scroll down. So think of an iPhone. The surface of the touch screen on your computer now appears that. I'm not at the Dell computer on the machine. I'm at my recording where I do my educational videos. But if I wanted to zoom in, the traditional way we would do this is we could certainly just come over here with this little guy here active. What is that called? If you don't remember, because I don't, it's called the center zoom. Thank you very much, Bernina. I like that. So with that, if I take my cursor here and then use my scroll wheel in, you can see that this will zoom in and zoom out. And you guys know this. This is not version 2 class. Again, the point here that I'm making is that you do have a zoom feature that works like your smart device now, and it's direct contact onto the screen of the computer. I hope that makes sense. So back down here into the lower left. So we can turn the Easy Glide motors off when we don't need them. That's a beautiful thing. This is to signal to pull up the bobbin thread. And if I take this off, it'll not signal me to do that anymore. It will, in essence, just go ahead and stitch. Why would I want to do that? I would oftentimes do that because one of the things that we've had in Q-Matic prior to this, let me just bring in a design so we can just look at something. I'm just over here in the design center. Bringing in designs on the machine is exactly the same as it had been. So that is, there is no change in that. We do have, I believe, around 60 or so new designs, which is very good. I do appreciate that. And they are under the tag would be the OESD. That is the new tag. So like you had said, Sarah Vidler, and you had block designs and other things. Let me just get into the design center because I can show you this. So here I have my design center, and it's these designs here, I believe, under OESD. And if I just come up here and say match all tags, excuse me. These are the ones that I consider are new. And again, OESD, I matched all tags, and what we have here are these new types of designs here, which I think are lovely. I certainly see myself using some of them. In particular, I do like down here this puzzle piece one. That is très cool. If you've had prior things, like if I come under here, I've got a Shannon category. You would not have that because my name is Shannon Strain. If I click on the Shannon category, this brings me into all the things I have created in software, all the projects I have done. Why did I take you here? I took you here because when you update your machine, I did not lose any of my designs. Okay, so it leaves the database that you create as a user of the machine untouched, and that's a good thing as well. So that's, I think, all I needed to say about that. I'm just going to close the design center back down. So if I had a design here, again, I'm coming back to why is it that it would be okay not to have to pull up our bobbin thread. I don't know about you, but sometimes I get designs that break on me. And the thing about that is when a design breaks, if a thread breaks, you stop in the middle, what have you, the pattern was interrupted for some reason. When you go back to the go command, you have two options. You can go to the end point of the design, the stopping point of the design. The stopping point, not the end point. The stopping point of the design. Or you could go at closest point of the design. The thing about doing, let's just say, for example, my design ended right here. And I've got two cursors because I've got two computers. All right, so right here. So let's just say that the thread broke here. What I can certainly do is I would put, in essence, wherever something broke, when the thread breaks, I actually put a piece of masking tape down with a little arrow that points to me where I need to restart this design. If you notice, between these 2 points, let me just kind of zoom in here on a bit, there is less than, there's less than 2 inches here between this point and this point. And what can happen, and what would certainly happen if you were like in a point like here, if the thread breaks here and you went ahead and repositioned the head where you think the design should have ended, which is right here, sometimes the computer, watch closely my cursor, sometimes the computer sees that this is where you wanted to be. And so you're anticipating the Q-Matic to start where you left off. But in what happens is it starts over here and starts going this way. And lo and behold, all of this is not stitched. So the fact that I can do 2 things. I can turn off pulling up the bobbin, and then this guy here is to turn on and off sewing. We could still have done this, folks. If I come back up here under settings, I could come up here and I could do the same functions here. Pause to pull up the bobbin and the sewing thing. It's easier to have it right here on the screen, so I'm not having to come up here. So what I can do here is I can turn off the sewing. I can position the head where I think it wants to start. And I can go ahead and start it. It's going to say, what do you want me to do? Do it at the end point or closest point of the design. And I will say where I place the sew head, I want it to do the closest part of the design. And then I can see with the stitching and the pulling up the thread off, I could see how the sew head is pathing. And if it's going where I thought it should go, then I'm in the right spot. Another way that you could do the same function is, let's just say the stitching here was good. So all of this is stitching and the thread breaks here. So what I can do is the same function. I turn off pulling up the bobbin thread. I can turn off sew to sew. I can place it here where thread has already been laid down. And I can say go. I can watch it stitch out. And just before it gets to where the break is, I can stop the machine, stop the head. I can then turn back on my pulling up of the bobbin thread and my sewing function. And then when I hit start and I put in closest point of the design, it will begin to sew where I told it to start. So no more of this starting in another part of the design, because where you were unfortunate to have a thread break was very close to another part of the path. I did wish that we were able to, like if you have any of the most modern domestic embroidery machines, they have a stitch count, and you can say go back 10 stitches or go back to specifically stitch number 2582, and the pattern or the embroidery hoop in this case would go exactly back to that position. This is the next best thing. This is something else that's new. This particular pattern, it's a block pattern. Let me just zoom out here. It's a block pattern. And what this is showing me is that the start and stop point is here. In which direction is the needle going to start? Let me zoom in. It's going to start here where the green is. And where is it going to finish? It's going to be coming up along like this. The red is indicating where it's going to finish, and it finishes there. So in version 3.00.22 of the software, we now have more obvious start and stop points. If we had a pattern, let me see if I can grab a pattern that's not starting and stopping at the same place. To like something like this. I'm going to come back out and click on this. Let me just see everything. This is the pattern I just brought in. I can just zoom in on here because we don't need to use this. But do you see here? This is a edge-to-edge design. Do you see how it's starting here, comes down, and then it's going to end here? So it's the same type of skill set. It's just that in this particular design, because of what the design is, it's starting and stopping in 2 different places. So that was a big right-on. That definitely was a big right-on. Thank you, Bernina, for that. One of the other things, I'm just kind of reading over these improvement things. They mentioned that they improved the speed regulation and consistency. I just installed this yesterday, folks, and I've been shooting some other videos, so I haven't had a lot of time to do a lot of stitch out with this. But My understanding is that the Q-Matic will now stitch roughly 30% quicker, and even in more complex designs. You know what I'm talking about. Generally, if we have a more complex design, the machine head slows down, which is good for stitch quality, but bad when you've got time constraints and if you're doing a lot of quilts. So that's a good thing. There's an improvement in the accuracy of the stitch out. There's an improvement in the speed at which it will stitch. We still have the same slider bar here. You know, this is the fastest it will go. I very seldom do this. This is the slowest that it will go. So I cracked myself up because I wanted to show you a thread break as well as how quick the machine stitches currently. And so I stitched this thing out and I was about ready to do the thread break, but it had finished it before I could do the thread break for you, and it completed the design when it stopped, which was kind of funny. So it is going quicker, which is nice. I do want to zoom up here because can you guys see, like, underneath my needle? This is the head of the machine here, right? This is really thin fabric that I'm stitching on. It is a white muslin. I use this for doing draping when I do garments, etc. But look at the stitch quality, despite the fact that I'm sewing on one layer of fabric and I'm sewing relatively quick. Look at the stitch quality. It's lovely. I mean, this machine stitches like a dream. I am going to just zoom out of this just a bit. I just started a second repeat of the design, so now I can hopefully show you on camera, and I do have my scissors handy now to simulate the thread break. So I'm going to say to this, okay, and I'm going to let this just start to stitch. You can kind of see the BSR there, which is kind of fun. I'm going to speed this up. This is as fast as it's going to go. That's pretty quick. I'm slowing it back down so I don't run out of design. I'm going to simulate a thread break. Sorry for my elbow. It's going to run out of needle thread, hopefully, before it runs out of design. Okay, and so there was my thread break. And, you know, what we would normally need to do at this point, besides cry and make sure that we stay at our machine, let me kind of get in here close and personal so you can see. Okay, so do you see, staying focused, do you see how, you know, I kind of picked up this stitch. This isn't really even a stitch. This can be just cut out. But I lost the thread upstairs, and what I would normally want to do is like maybe start it back a little bit here. Some of you are show quilters, and so what I'm going to tell you, don't listen to what I say because you'll be aghast. I'm not a show quilter, so I get things done quick. If, again, like areas like this, if the thread breaks here, just as I was illustrating before this new feature of being able to not pull up the bobbin thread and to sew in free air, sometimes I would start the head and it would start over here versus here. So I like the idea of being able to say closest point of design, but don't start stitching it. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that in a second. So you don't need to see me rethread this machine, so I'm going to be right back. So I have you back over into the software. Again, I simulated a thread break, and I wanted to show you again these two things I'm going to turn off. Again, this is the Easy Glide. This again is the micro positioning. I'm going to turn off the automatic pull-up bobbin and turn off the sewing function because I don't want to pull up the bobbin. I don't want to sew at this point. I want to get back to where I want to start this design. So I'm going to come over here now to my play button. I need to make sure that this is not selected. This is selected but not yet ready to party with. If I click here, what I want to do is make sure that I press to go. And it's going to say at stop point, no, because I skipped stitches, so I don't. At closest part of the design, yes, but with the caveat, I don't want you to sew. I want to see where you're stitching, and I will stop you. And then when I stop you, it'll be at the stop point. You'll see what I mean. So I'm going to say at closest part of the design. I'm going to switch this back over to the camera view. Again, this green mark is what I put down where I remind myself where I want to restart this design. And you can see the head is moving. You see how it's going like way over here? So I'm in a different part of the design. So this is not cool. I would hate to have started that because now I'm skipping all of this stuff here. So let me try this again. I'm not going to take you back over to the computer, just use your imaginations. So I'm coming down here and I'm thinking, let me turn on my laser because that could help also. And here is my, where's my laser? So I had to stop the camera again because I wanted to turn on my laser so that I could better see where exactly the head is seeing as opposed to my bifocal eyes. And if you notice up here, where's my laser button, right? Because I have the laser on here. I updated the head, etc., etc. So I had to shut it down and kind of regroup here. And I'm doing this online. I want you to see this because this is going to happen to you at home as well. So what I need to do is I need to go back into my home button. I need to go into the gears. I need to go onto the laser. I need to turn that little guy on. And then I need to go back into my home. Lo and behold, here's my laser again. Hallelujah, hallelujah, life is good. So if you're missing this after updating the head of your machine, do as I just showed you. Don't panic, which I did off camera and a little bit on. But that's just the way it is. I want to turn this on so that it is automatic, which means it's going to be on. The A means it's going to be on only when the machine is stopped, per se, not when it's running. I don't need to see the laser when it's running. So I'm going to come back down, give you a little ride here. Here we go, down, down, down. Okay. And so what I want to do is I want to get this, make sure this is on this little line here. So I'm coming back down here, and that little guy is on the line, on that line. Yes, 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 yes. And so let me move the little sticker here, the speed control, and I'm slowing it down because I don't need it to go full tilt boogie. I'm going to go ahead and click on the plus, the play I should say, the green check mark at closest part of the design. Sensing information, and now it's beginning to stitch. You see how it's going along the path. This is what I expect to see. I'm going to pause it. I'm going to pause it when I want it to actually start right there. I'm going to have that little bit of a tie-in here and then continue to go if life goes well. So I'm coming back over the machine. I'm just telling you what I'm doing here. I'm going to go ahead and it says the machine is paused. I said that's fine. I'm going to say stop. So I've locked that point in. So this should now be at the stop point of the design. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my bobbin pull-up and my actual sewing function, which is a good thing. I'm going to go ahead and hit the start button. I'm checking the green check mark, and I'm going to do at stop point, because this is a new stop point. Coming over here to the machine here. You don't need to see the screen up here. I'm just telling it to pull up the bobbin thread. Look at that. Just look at that. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So nice, so nice. And then I'm going to go ahead and just push the start button. And it's going to start sewing where I told it to start. I have much more control over this now. So all I can say is thank you, thank you, thank you, Bernina, for giving that. At least that is wonderful. And I'm going to go ahead. This is at the slowest speed. Let me just show you the fastest speed. And you can see this finishing stitching. I mean, isn't that nice? But this I thought was very, very, very cool. It's best to, it'd be good for me to show you on the long arm itself, but you guys have done this. You guys know how to put in the little push pins, and you can define an area to put a block in. Prior to this version, we the option we had was to define a block by 4 points, which makes sense. I mean, it's 4 points makes a block, oftentimes, unless it doesn't. It doesn't make a square necessarily. It could make a, like a rhomboid or a trapezoid, that type of thing. But now what we have is, let me just select the design. Everything, if something is grayed out, it's non-selected. If it is blue, it has been selected and had potentially queued up. If it's red, it means it's ready to party. It's ready to be stitched out. So if you're ever clicking on the start button and nothing's happening, it's because you need to make sure that you got a design that is red. So I'm going to come over here with the this 4-point function. And this to me, I thought was, hello. It was like really, really, really nice. It's this multi-point thing that I think is the cat's meow. So let's just say I'm going to do a multi-point thing, and I'm just going to do this on screen, but you could certainly click on sew head. Then you would go over to your Q-Series machine, and with the handlebars, put down the push pin. So I'm just simulating this. So I'm moving my head, and this area that I want this block to fit in, it's actually kind of a strange block, and it's not even like a block. There's like more than there's more than 5 points. It's like was kind of like this, and you could say, Shannon, what on earth are you doing? It said, I don't know, but I want what I want. And so this is my free piecing assembly of a quilt per se. It's going to be gorgeous. And so for me to close this, I don't come up here and close the point here. What I do is I come over here and I say close the boundary, and that finishes up here. So now what I'm going to do is it says select the 4 points starting from the bottom left. So the 4 points that I want this to start to gravitate into are going to be these 4 points here, this one up here, and this one over here. And do you see? I love this. Do you see how it really did a great job in morphing this thing to fit in this very strange shape? So now I can, and I would certainly more do this like with these oval things, because I can just tell people that these were pebbles and they don't need to know that initially they were circles. But I like how this does. This time what I want to do is not morph to fit, but I want it to do a center stretch, and you guys are going to ooh, ah when you see this. This is like so cool. So I'm going to say center stretch. I'm going to do 4-point stretch. This is still cool, but let's see. I want to do a center stretch. And what I have now is I can take this and these different points here. And you see how I can kind of pull these where I want this to fit. Before it would kind of, you had the ability to do a, that is so cool. I love this. I'm going to purposely make a quilt with weird blocks. Just look at this, how you can just kind of morph it where you want it to be and still get it into that frame. This center stretch has to be done with 4 points, apparently. It'd been very cool if you could do it with multiple points, but I am grateful. We've been waiting a long time for this I love that. We've been waiting a long time for this update, so I'm grateful. Before we had the ability to maintain ratio, we could tell it how far off of the edge of the block to have it, or we could morph it to fit. This is kind of like morphing to fit, but I have more control of it. I hope you could have appreciated that than just this one-click wonder type thing. So that, to me, I thought was a big yeehaw, and you can quote me on that, yeehaw. So I'm going to go out of here. I'm going to go ahead and let me just zoom all of this here. And I want to show you something relatively cool. I still think it's cool. I'm going to delete this guy also. So what I want to do next, I want to show you a new feature, which is a angular trim line using 2 points. And so this is not an edge-to-edge class, but what I did is I just brought in this little edge-to-edge design. I repeated it across X number just to have a little bit of overlay here, a little bit of overlay here. I could certainly come in and resize things. Generally when I'm doing edge to edge, especially patterns like this, I want a little leeway on the outside of the quilt so that I can trim accordingly. So I'm going to just go ahead and bring this down, and let me just repeat a couple of these guys. And 4, 5. I could put another one in, but I generally, when I'm doing this type of work, I'll generally, and because the quilt's going to draw up, I'll generally add this last one later, because that way I can do just a little bit of a resize. But for this class, what I will do is I'm going to add just another one so it's overhanging, and you'll see why in just a moment. The other thing, notice how I can see that everything's starting from the left and it's going to go to the right. It's green here, that's the start. It ends here red, that's the end. That's a great thing. Because I generally want to do a join, I'm going to want this to go kind of forward and back like such. I want to go ahead and put in for a vertical flip and do it alternatively, so you can see, just starting up from the top, that it starts here, it ends here. Sorry, it starts here, it ends here, it'll eventually go down here, come back over this way, etc., etc., etc. So that's cool. Next thing I would do is I would come over here and do a trim, and I am going to trim selected designs. I already have all the designs in here, but I trim as I go because quilts, I don't know about you, but they're not blocks of wood. They're fabric, and so these little suckers are going to move on you. So I don't want to trim everything all at once. I will generally, whatever I can fit in my my safe zone, which is from here on up, I will go ahead and trim, and I'm probably not going to even trim this, because if that is hanging out just a little bit, let me just see. It looks like it might be in, but why risk it? I'm going to just say, no, I'm not going to trim you either, but I'll just trim these guys up here. So I'm going to say I want to do selected designs. I'll do this on the screen and come back up here. So again, I want to go ahead and trim as I go. And in order to do that, I first need to go ahead and deselect everything. It's blue, so it's not queued up to go or anything. And I'm just going to go ahead and tell it that I want to ungroup everything. Ungroup. And now I can just go here. I want this guy, this guy. Let me group this. This guy, this guy. Right. And so now I'm going to go into my trim. It's going to be on the screen. I'm going to start with a horizontal trim. I want to invert that, so I'm just getting the stuff up on top. I can preview. Preview is a good thing. This we had before as well, but you'll be able to see what is taken off of the quilt. That's better. And then I'm just going to grab the two sides here. If I was doing this for real, I would probably zoom up a little bit. And also, do consider, this is going to trim so it just stops at the edge of the quilt, but you can also give yourself a little room so it'll just stitch off on the batting, which is a nice thing. So that black is what's going to be trimmed away. That's correct for my purposes for today. I'm going to come over here, same story. See, it's black inside here, so I want to invert this so it's cutting away the proper part of that. Preview it. That looks good. And again, what I wanted to show you is not so much how to do edge-to-edge quilting. What I do want to show you, though, is say that this was the edge of the quilt and it was at an angle. Or even better yet, if you were, say, if you were over here and you're noticing that as you're quilting, the edge, for whatever reason, is drifting like this. I mean, that hopefully it's not going to be a couple of inches difference, but you know what I mean. We've all been there. We've all done that. Or you're all right. So let's just say that this is the end of the quilt here, and it's still true also with an east or west side of the quilt. But I'm just saying that for whatever reason, and maybe it is edge to edge quilting, and I have a break here like on a diagonal where I want to do another design that's at an angle and coming down this way. It's easier to see if I just do it on the base here. And I'm going to go into the cutting with the design selected so it's red. That's important. I'm going to come over here, and this is the new function. I'm going to do an angle line, and I'm going to tell it where I want this to start and stop. So the first point of my angle line is here. You can kind of see where I'm going with this. See how all of this would be cut away? And the end point is down here. So I just want this bit cut away. I can preview it, and that's exactly what will happen. And then when I click on yes, and then this will actually stitch and do what it needs to do with it. So I do also want to say that the Q-Matic version 3, the program itself is actually now a 64-bit as opposed to a 32-bit program. Why does that matter? Not really a whole lot, I think, to the average user. The 64-bit types of architecture gives the programs the ability to see more RAM than I think it's like 32 or below, 32 gigabytes of RAM or less. My Dell computer, and yours might be different, depends on when you purchased it. My Dell computer that came with Q-Matic has only 4 gigabytes of RAM. So we're not talking about something that you're doing multiple processes on. You're not going to be doing Word documents and playing videos and browsing the web and doing quilting. This is really a dedicated machine for doing quilting and quilting alone, especially at that RAM. But if you have a higher computer with more specifications, the 64-bit application architecture certainly can help in those situations. My hard drive is something like, I'm going to say it's like 120 gigabytes. Again, not huge considering that most hard drives in the 21st century are terabytes in size. So again, our computer that we use on our long arm is not where we're storing videos. It's not going to be where we're storing lots and lots of files. I've been using this system since 2018, and I have used about a third of the hard drive space. So again, this application, the Q-Matic, and the designs that we make with Art and Stitch are certainly not space hogs by any means. So the other thing I wanted to show about is we can now see jump stitches in designs. And why that is important is because if you have a design, I'm going to get rid of one of these mouses over here. If you have a jump stitch in a design, let me show you an example. This is going to be Tula Pink's design. She's fabulous, as you all know. What we're seeing here are these are the jump stitches, these little diagonal lines. I'm going to see if I can get any. These are the jump stitches. So what this is telling me is this design, I can't just walk away and have the stitch out. The design, part of the design is going to stitch out, and then what will happen is the machine will stop. You'll need to break thread, pull up the bob, and start again. Why do we do this? It's because this design could certainly be stitched out in one color, but it could also be, the pause gives you the ability to change colors. And so the background might be different than the wings, which might be different than the body, and hence that's why you have all of those jumps. Very cute design. The other thing that I find very, very useful, and I'm so glad Bernina allowed us to now be able to do this, is when I'm in art and stitch, I actually design oftentimes whole cloth quilts, and prior to this version you could only bring in designs as parts of a design. You couldn't bring the whole thing into Q-Matic and lay it out because it saw everything as one design as opposed to separate components. I'm going to give you kind of a real-time example. Let me just flip the camera around so you can see me. Let me go down here and grab the other mouse and tell it to go into this guy here. So hi. So so this was this, if you're not used to using a long arm, this is a really good project. All these are panels, and you've seen these in your local quilt shop. I love these things. I hang these outside the door here at my house for all the different seasons and what have you. But what I like about this is this gives us the opportunity, let me get in close so you can love on this a bit, to do different types of stitching in these different types of blocks. And so you can see each block has its own little stitching. Let me just kind of keep coming up so you can see da 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 da. So each one a different pattern that I brought in. Da 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 da. Da, da, da. Okay, so that's the project, or a project. So let me show you how I do this. Let me go back to our software here, and I do this in Art and Stitch. And so what I will do is I'll actually take a picture of the panel, bring it into Art and Stitch as a backdrop. I have to make sure the scale is correct and I don't have any distortion, so it's important to aim the camera at a true 90-degree angle towards the panel. I oftentimes do that up on a step stool with the panel on the floor, so I've got some distance here to work with, crop the image down and what have you. So I have still, I did that panel you just saw a couple of years ago, but I still have that. Let me just, I'm just going to, this is my shortcut key for Art and Stitch, and I'm going to tell it, let me first just bring up this, because it's Art and Stitch is already up. So I'm just going to come into Art and Stitch. So this is Art and Stitch. And what I did is, again, I took the picture, put it on there, and then you can see how I designed each of these blocks. You just saw the quilt to fit these different patterns. Ooh, ah, that's kind of cool. So the behavior in this is when I send this over to Q-Matic, and I do this by coming up here, and I'm just going to go ahead and do this. By the way, after you finish designing, you need to make sure you apply stitches. Generally, it's going to be a single stitch, which is up here. And you can see down here that I've got a stitch slider where I could see how this would stitch out. And that this design has 69,359 stitches. Yes. So I'm going to come up here and say, send this over to Q-Matic. It's going to tell me that the current design does not fit in the hoop. And again, this is also embroidery software, so that's what they're referring to. And we're just going to say, do you still want to continue on? I'm going to say, yes, please. And so here I have, and let me kind of zoom out here a bit. Here I have the panel. And as you can see, it's not going to fit in the safe zone. Like this is my safe zone here. It's not going to fit there. I can certainly take this and move this up. But, you know, it's I can like stitch like maybe these guys here, but not this one. I can't get this one. In other words, when this was brought in for Q-Matic, I'm going to deselect it. When I select it again, you see everything is selected. And that's how the behavior was in version 2. It would be one BQM design, end of story. In version 3, now we have the ability to unconnect or disconnect. And I just want to call your attention. You can see that this is one design, kind of like Tula Pink's design, right? With the little bumblebee. Do you see the jump stitches here? jump, 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 jump. So this is one file, end of story. This is the start point where the green circle is. This is the end point. This is where the design would stop. If I had a really huge long arm or a really huge embroidery hoop, but we don't have either of those. So I have to have a way of selecting each of these individually and stitch them out. And because of the fact that we have a version 3, I come over to disconnect, and with it selected, because it's red, I click on disconnect, and now look at the magic. Look at the magic. So what we have here, we have no jumps because each of these are individual designs. Yes, please. I'm going to come up here, and you can kind of see how we have our starts and our stops. This is generally, if you see only one circle, I'm going to come in here a little closer. Do you see how the circle's here and it's green going this way? So this is going to start here. It will end up here. This is going to start here, back up a bit, come down a bit. And it starts down here, it ends here. I can certainly have the design selected and do a switch the start and end points if that was important. It's not. But the beauty behind this, guys, is now what I can do with version 3 is I can come in here and let me scooch this over here. Here we go. So I can come in here, and now I'm going to make sure everything is deselected. I'm going to come over here, and I want to make sure I'm dequeuing everything so nothing's queued. I'm going to come over here to select, and I'm going to say I want to stitch this first, this second, this third, and all I can say is thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Bernina, for doing this for us. So again, the big takeaway here is I can design whole cloth quilts in Art and Stitch. I can bring them over. I can have everything pre-positioned. I line up the first block, and unless there's a lot of distortion, all I'm doing is going bing, 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 stitch things out, realign my safe zone, bing, 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 realign my safe zone, etc. I'm not having to go into Art and Stitch and bring each of these designs in separately and then having to realign it and everything else, because the alignment is good here. I made sure of that in Art and Stitch. So that was a big yes. And again, I say thank you, Bernina. So the last couple of things I just want to touch upon. When it comes to realigning the safe zone, you know, I'll come here. This we've had before. The new thing is to set the guideline, and I have to be honest. There's no instructions that I have in the update. So this is kind of like by hunting and pecking, and this is I've had this on my system now for a little over 24 hours. So forgive. I will tell you that again. This is your safe zone. Here I'm going to back out just a bit. When I click on set. This is what's new. Set guideline. It gives me a guideline here. It looks like it's aligning like over to this, but I don't know how one would move this. They talk about like repositioning to screen. Let me just see if I can fiddle with this. I mean, this I'm not able to do anything here. I can do like a snap point. Let me see if I go to, let me go out of here, come back in here. I want to go to, well, snap point would be on the head. I don't want to do that. But again, when you have this, you get this additional line, and I'm presuming you're lining this up with another thing, like maybe a crosshair, but it's not making sense to me. But I just want you to know that it's there. You can comment, and I'll learn from you guys as well as we move forward. I do want to say that behind the scenes, there's something called a standby mode in Windows, where maybe it just freezes on you, or it goes into a low power mode, like an echo mode, whatever. And with the new update, the program went into Windows and turned PC standby mode off. So that's a good thing. And then the last thing I wanted to comment on, and then I think I did a pretty thorough job with going over that which I learned from the tick boxes of what's new. they did mention that autosave has been added, so we can recoup up to 10 older versions of a product after a system shutdown. And what I'm thinking by system shutdown is maybe power failure. So that is a big right on if you're in the middle of a project and you've saved what have you, that it's auto saved, I should say. So that is a good thing. Let me just see quickly while we're all together here. Do I have anything here that shows me about auto save timing? It might be like it saves it every 10 minutes, every 20 minutes. Let me just see if there's anything here that talks to that. So options, no, that's nothing. Coming back over here, view, edit, file, save. I mean, this is how we would save, but I'm not seeing, like in a lot of programs, you'll see like preferences, something of that nature, and then you could say, I want you to save every 5 minutes, what have you. I'm not seeing that, but I could certainly be missing it. But it is nice that whatever interval of time that Bernina deemed reasonable, we have up to 10 auto saves for a project in case you have power failure. So I hope this this review of the features in version 7 has helped, and that my install video, when you folks get this on March 22nd, will make you not lose too much of your hair, as the case may be. So appreciate the attention, and always love the feedback. Take care, guys. Bye for now.